fitting. So please, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So firstly, welcome everyone. I am really glad to see some of you here, and I hope that there'll be some more people. But yeah, I mean, before I start off with the content, I want a quick heads up of how many of you have ever used an assistive tool to navigate through a website, like a screen reader or the keyboard, or the tab key on your keyboard. Has anyone done that before? Okay, I see 1, 2. Okay, interesting. So you probably will not be able to imagine a lot of scenarios that I say, but yeah, I'll try my best to explain what I'm going to talk about, and that will help you imagine where accessibility fails. So in today's world, we are in an era where AI is generating a lot of content around us. It's generating images, videos, building chatbots, building responsive UIs, building web pages, and even websites these days. But although they're smart, but they're not always inclusive. So that means that not everyone can use it properly and make a sense out of it. So my talk is going to cover that where AI-generated content on your UIs would make it inaccessible, and what are some ways, using Python especially, to fix all of them. So let's start off. Starting with a quick intro. So I'm from India. I work as a software engineer at Adobe. And I work on this product named Adobe Express. It has a lot of AI integrations, and users can build creative templates, do creative things on it. Even this presentation is built on Adobe Express. And like out of work, I'm pursuing a remote master's from Georgia Tech, so that has given me an academic edge and even gives me exposure to a lot of things around machine learning, interactive intelligence, and so on. So it's like my work is mostly on the software side and the client side of AI features, but yeah, it's my academic thing which pushes me more towards more and more Python tools and machine learning in general. And yeah, out of work and all these things, when I get some time, I go to community events, travel around, and this is my first PyCon talk. So, cool then. Let us start with seeing what really makes a web page accessible. So like, there are 4 principles, and they're commonly called as the POUR, P-O-U-R rule. So P means perceivable. It means that anyone who is looking at your content, they should be able to detect and experience the content well. Now, when I say detect and experience it well, it means that first thing, that if they're navigating through images, they should have alt text, because screen readers, when they, when you tab through all the content, it actually reads the text of it. So if it's a text, let's say a button, it would read the text of that button. But if it's an image, it would need an alt text to just describe what the image is doing or what the context is. Second thing is that the videos that you have should have captions in it. Now, a lot of times people manually add captions, but these days even AI is generating captions for a lot of videos. But it's just that we have to double check whether it's mapping the content correctly or not. The third thing is the color choices, or I'll say the color contrast. So imagine a website which has some elements which have just 2 or 3 colors, let's say green and red. So imagine someone who has color blindness of red and green. They would not be able to comprehend what that content is. So I mean, color blindness comes in many variants, and it might not be possible to cover all of them or like fix all of them. But when you're building an app, when you're building a website, and it already has a lot of AI content, just try that the contrast fits in well to cater most of the people. Second principle is operable. It means that people should be able to interact with your content and should be able to at least see whatever is present. Now, for this, I mentioned that using the tab button on the keyboard is one way. But like, how does that happen? You need to make sure that all the interactive elements on your web page can actually be reached via keyboard. Now, this is not something that Python can do, but yeah, this is more of web knowledge, that how do you make your UI elements focusable and even make them in a way that the keyboard tab button can reach them. So, and even like operable principle even covers a point that, all the chatbots and whatever modals are opening automatically on your website should not really trap user. Imagine a condition where, your user is navigating through a website and suddenly a chatbot opens up saying that, oh, here's a new suggestion for you. So although it's a good thing for, if it's giving you a suggestion, it will actually make your experience better. But if you're using keyboard to navigate through it, and there's no way to close that modal or something, it's actually a moment where a user would get frustrated, or especially a user who's using assistive tech would get definitely frustrated. So make sure to keep those things in mind on how do you place your chatbots, how do you place your modals or automated suggestions. The third point is understandable. So this means that whatever content you have should have simple language. It should be easy to understand. Now, when I say simple language, to some extent, it includes that, okay, use simple words, or whatever text is there on your website, convey whatever you want to in a very clear and concise way. But this, this understandable thing is beyond the text and the understanding part. A major thing where understanding principle fails is the auto-generated forms that we have these days. So imagine a website has a sign up dialog which was AI generated. Now, let's say there are 3 fields: enter an email, enter a password, confirm password, and a button proceed. So let's say email, obviously, they have some encodings that, okay, should be a valid email. And let's say someone types an incorrect email. So a lot of times, AI generated ones, they simply return that, okay, error code XXX. So for a developer, it might be easy to understand that, okay, there is some error, and you know what error is. But unless you convey that error message clearly, a lot of times it even happens that, okay, after you've filled on all the details, let's say the first detail was incorrect, but after you click on proceed, it just fails. And it does not give a meaningful error. It just shows on the console that, okay, error 4XX. So this kind of an experience, I mean, for someone who can, see things clearly or, can understand things without using these screen readers and all, they can still make out that, okay, probably there's a typo in the email. It's incorrect at something.com or so. But screen readers at times do not understand this error well. Like screen readers would not really go on your console, interpret the error out of it and suggest. So make sure that, like in this example, a very clear way of showing that, there's an error. They could just show a text message next to the first field that, okay, email is incorrect, enter the proper one. So, I mean, the more we are starting to rely on AI-generated content, the chances of these kind of errors are very easy to find and very easy to notice. The last point is robustness. So like make sure that your web apps work across they're robust enough to work across multiple devices and multiple UI layouts. Like a lot of websites, break when they are seen in short screens. Like if they are desktop compatible, they might break on iPad or so. So use proper semantics so that whatever images you have generated or whatever generated content that you're showing to convey a particular thing or to solve a particular thing, they do not really frustrate the user in any way possible. So moving on to the next slide. Now, I added this image to make you understand how things can be weird. So are you able to see all the text easily? There's a very bad contrast of colors in a lot of tiles. So, I mean, is there anyone who can read all the tiles without squinting their eyes at least? Okay, interesting. But, I mean, for most of the people, the contrast is not right. So let me be your, assistive tech and read out all the text that is written. So starting from the light orange tile at the top of it, top of the circle, so which says use of colors, it means that use the right colors. I'll talk a bit about what tools you can use to change the contrast, brightness, or even check what, whether you're following whether you have the right contrast value or not. Moving clockwise, so there's a tile with dark pink, bright pink color, and that says use of fonts. Use right fonts, do not use a lot of funky fonts. I mean, it's okay. I mean, people might use them to make things look interesting or gamify things, but I mean, just double check on what fonts you use. Third is website navigation. Make sure that, all that beautiful content that you have on your website is actually accessible by keyboard, if it actually makes sense for the user to at least, click on them or at least know about them. Fourth one, the one in blue color, is content structure and semantics. So again, this is a more of how you should structure things. Use proper HTML semantics. I will give a better example of this in the further talk, but it's like, don't just do divs. Don't just use divs in your web page, but make use of multiple things and proper things. Then the dark orange one is screen reader compatibility. Make sure that you run your website through the screen readers, and just verify if they actually convey what they should be conveying. Next is images and media. So I mean, this involves a lot of images, generated images, generated videos. So as I said, images should have proper alt text, and if you're having a video, then make sure to add captions to it. I mean, there are a lot of tools. I was actually involved in a tool to generate captions of a video. Then moving on to that bright green one, keyboard accessibility. Check your website by pressing tab, tab, tab on your keyboard and using other keyboard buttons, and just see if you are able to do whatever you would want your user to do through that website. So this was a quick summary of the principles we learned and things to take care of. Now, accessibility challenges in AI-driven content. Although I've used a lot of examples of AI-generated content, but like here, like on the right side, you can see a few articles, news articles, where AI-driven content and the fact that it wasn't accessible created a lot of frustration around users. So firstly, unpredictable DOM updates. A lot of travel sites have this thing that the moment, let's say you have searched that, okay, from X to Y on this date, and there's some dynamic change on, based on the flight prices or based on users' previous preferences, there's some change in the order or new recommendation. So, the order of the flights changed automatically, and the screen reader could not, recognize that change unless the user went back to the first tab or not. So, I mean, although, with ML models being integrated on your websites, unpredictable DOM updates are very common. Like it would not really change the DOM element, it would just update the text of it. But for a user relying on screen readers, it's actually tough. So if you're adding such a thing on your website, you can probably do like, show them a warning. There's a new change. Do you want to proceed? Okay, change it. So that at least the screen readers know what is happening, and with the help of that, the users know what is actually happening. The next is bad or missing alt text. A lot of models which generate images, they do not add an alt text unless you specify that, okay, send me a specific alt text. A lot of, like if you just run through it on a screen reader, it will be empty. So a screen reader would seriously call it null. And it's actually hard what is null, whether it's the image that is null or the text box which is null. So, try generating alt text. I do have some examples where you can make use of Python and some libraries, some models to actually generate good alt text. Then color contrast, I mentioned, is again an important thing. So where's that example? So like that iBob's example, the issue was that their website was not really compatible by screen reader when they initially launched. Now they have This is an older news. It was back in March 2022. But yeah, this was an example. This was a very example which went to a very large scale, and then things were improved. After that, the other was that other example about government's AI peatland map. So AI model actually regenerated the map, and it missed out on a lot of details, which created a lot of confusion amongst people. So that is a very, if when you discuss color contrast issues, the map issue comes up very commonly. Next is lack of focus control. So a lot of UIs, dynamic UIs, they, like users just loses control and loses context of what they were doing. So this again should be minimized. And last is biased data or like incomplete training data. A lot of times, these data do not cover scenarios of people dealing with accessibility issues. So like if you just ask a lot of models to generate image, they might generate images of people working happily, doing everything. But yeah, they might, unless you specify, it's very uncommon to see that, they would cover inaccessibility things in whatever they generate. So, and with biased data, there's even an issue with the language. So a lot of, voice translation models, they actually miss out on the right accent or so. So even that requires that, okay, your data should cover wide variety of people, cultures, and things that they do. So now moving on to the tools part. So the first one is the Axe tool. Is that image okay, or, is it readable? Okay, so like Axe, although there is a library Axe core in Python, which you can use, like you can just code or run through it. The other simple way to access Axe is it comes up as a Chrome extension. So you can just add it as an extension here. If you see, I actually added this Axe dev tools on my console, and then like this is an example of bad website. So when I ran it through Axe tools, it just showed that there are 67 errors or 67 issues, out of which 34 are critical, 10 are serious, and 23 moderate. Now, if you just see through these issues, they are mostly around that, okay, the minimum color contrast isn't reached, then the element does not have a language attribute, image doesn't have an alt text, and so on. So Axe is a tool which you can, which can actually point out these issues, and then you can just go and fix them. And as I said, there's a Python library for it, and even a Chrome extension that you can use easily. For these things, I did record a demo, but it was too fast, so I just thought I'll show directly on the Google Colab thing. So Pillow is actually a library which is a powerful image processing library. You can actually use it to apply a specific contrast, apply any image property like brightness, or change anything on an image. So this image that you see on your right, I actually generated this from AI. I just said mountain, vacationing. I gave these keywords and it just generated this. Now, contrast, when you're calculating contrast, it actually looks for the text which which is written on top of it. So for this example, I considered that, okay, what if I write black text on this image? So when I just calculated the contrast, it came out to be 3.18, which does not follow the WCAG. So WCAG is Web Content Accessibility Guideline, which says that for any website, the color contrast issue should be 4.5:1. I guess, yeah, the ratio should be 4.5. So the first image does not really, pass through that guideline, and so I ran it through the, enhance method and added a contrast of it using this Pillow library, and then it improved it to some extent to make the ratio 5.04. But like my point here is that Pillow is a very powerful library which you can use to adjust contrast or any image properties for any image. Next thing that I have is alt text. So alt text is again really important. Now there are multiple libraries and models out there, but yeah, I have an example using transformers which makes uses of this blip model, and I even have an example with the vision encoder decoder model. So like although if I just compare these two models by transformers, the blip model generated a better caption for me. Like I had this image, and when I used the blip processor, it's actually a strong one it's actually a strong, I guess Salesforce built this one. So when I generated the alt text for this image, it generated it as a small dog running through a field with a red ball in its mouth. When I used this vision encoder decoder model, it generated something like a dog playing with a ball in the grass. Even TensorFlow has a way to generate alt text, but yeah, that isn't very useful. At least wasn't useful for this case because it just did Beagle. So I mean, in real life, you won't be generating alt text for a single image. I mean, if you just look at this image, you can simply write. You won't really need Python to generate an alt text. Like, imagine you were just adding this image on your website. You can do it yourself. The role of these Python code and all this comes into picture when you are doing it at a large scale. Let's say you are doing it for hundreds of images or so. So I would again say that compare the alt text which is generated, and again double check or triple check before you put anything on your website. And yeah, so this was about alt text. Next is Playwright. So Playwright is actually it's nothing very specific to Python. In general, it's used for keyboard navigation, and it's an end-to-end testing framework. So Playwright can also be used to help you test how the keyboard navigation would work. So I did add this page thing that go to this website and this print out the first few, what would happen if a user would click 15 times. So this way you can just see that what it actually does. This was a very bad example, so it didn't really focus on the right elements. But these are the tools in general which you can use to check for how are things going on with the AI generated content that you have before putting them on your website. So now let's come back to our okay. So things to take care of. I've already spoken of a lot of examples, but this is more like a summary to them. So firstly, label all buttons. Now, there can be buttons which are just icons. Let's say in the search bar, you just have an icon of magnifying glass. And it might, buttons do not have alt text. They're just for images. Buttons have ARIA labels. So you can actually add a property ARIA label and then add to it. If not that, just add a simple text to it that, next to that magnifying glass, you have the search thing written. That would be easy for the screen reader to explain further. Then avoid overusing ARIA. I just said that you can add ARIA labels, but that doesn't mean that you're going to do it for every other thing. Another common usage of ARIA is that if you have a div, you can assign role to it. That role equals button. So ARIA comes into picture there, and it actually makes that div as a button. But avoid doing that because that actually breaks the keyboard accessibility thing. Instead of adding roles to your divs, just make use of simple the button tag instead, and that will be a better way to build that up. Third is add skip links. So have you seen that websites having they play some ad kind of thing and then it just says click here to go to the main content? You might have seen, but do you see that in every other website? Not really. So this again helps people using assistive tech in a very good way. because if you have that button to just skip to main content, it saves a lot of time. I mean, imagine, you're just navigating through so many buttons and it just gets harder for you to reach the main content. So it might not be like, okay, just scroll to main content, but at least, skip to header or skip to section 2, section 3, so on. That would definitely make, someone using just the keyboard to reach their content easily. Fourth one is show indicator for keyboard focus. Now, I've been saying that people use keyboard tabbing, but yeah, if your UI does not have a focus to show them where they actually are, that again gets confusing and frustrating. I mean, you don't know where your focus is. So it might actually become confusing on where are they actually at, or do they press a tab or they pressed a tab shift to go back or go ahead. So make sure that there's a proper focus, and a lot of times, like I remember in some examples that even though elements have focus on the website, but yeah, when it comes to the modals or chatbots opening up, double check that there is a proper focus within that as well. Like it can happen that all the elements on their website are focusable, but not all the fields in that form or so are focusable. Then make form errors understandable. So I've covered this already, but yeah, this is just to recap that not just form errors, any sort of errors where users are entering, drop a clear message of what is it, and not just vague messages like error code XYZ. Last is use proper UI semantics. So in the second example that I gave, I did mention that you can use ARIA labels and all, but I mean use proper semantics. And semantics even covers that distinguish your UI layout properly into header, then the different sections, subsections, the footer, and so on. Like if there are sections and subsections, it makes it easy for the keyboard to tab through all of them very easily. So with this, we are at final tips. So first one is test early and often. There are a lot of chances that with AI-generated content, things might break up. It can happen that your existing website was already accessible, but when you added more things to it, the accessibility part broke. So yeah, test often, use tools like Axe, and keyboard testing, use screen readers to just check what your content actually says about it. Then prioritize usability over fancy features. I mean, it's good to have fancy features. It might be conveying your brand image, but usability, if usability is compromised, you are actually compromising the user experience. So, fancy is okay, but keep usability in mind too. Then don't blindly trust AI outputs. I mean, I was surprised to build a web page directly out of entering some prompts. It is good, but it might not be inclusive always. So double check to just try out if they are inclusive and usable by everyone. And then lastly, automate accessibility testing with Python tools. So integrate those testing things like integrate Playwright and Axe Core maybe, which off and on keeps pinging you with errors that okay, this isn't right, this is going wrong, and so on. And you can always have support kind of place where people can actually report issues. So yeah, I mean, I'll say accessibility is a continuous journey. Don't really take it as a checklist point that okay, now my website is ready. Now let me just check the accessibility thing and check off launch my website. Keep accessibility as a plan, as something when you're designing the system or even when you're planning out how to do things, because it's a part of system design, I'll say. So that's it. And to just end with, I'll say that smart apps are cool, but inclusive apps are cooler. So build both and make your users happy. Thank you.
Okay, do anyone have any question for Ms. Anushka here? Okay, if not, thank you, Ms. Anushka.